Good morning. Welcome to Washington, D.C. It's my hometown, and I encourage you to visit at least the mall or the suburbs. This is the most beautiful time of the season to be in Washington. We finished the cherries. We moved on to the magnolias and the forsythias. We're now into the azaleas and all kinds of very beautiful plants, flowers, and trees. I encourage you to do so. Bob is a dear friend of mine, and I'm deeply honored to have the opportunity to make this presentation to you today on leveraging digital transformation to drive customer excellence. By way of introduction, Bob already talked about it. I've been around for 34 years in the industry. You know, you gain a certain perspective over 34 years. You look at an industry grow and morph and change. And we're at a very important point in the industry on the topic of digital transformation and how to make that happen. And that's really the purpose of today's discussion. I've had the pleasure of working with a number of global corporations that Bob referred to. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories from some of these as we move forward. But most importantly, I want to lay the groundwork for how do we leverage digital technology to improve customer experience, and how do we use digital transformation to drive customer experience excellence. And I'm going to do that in 4 different parts. The first part, I'm going to look at a story, one of our customers. I'm going to take you down a journey. We all like a good story, and so I'm going to tell you about that company's journey along the way to successful digital transformation. I'm going to put into question whether digital transformation is something that is here to stay. And the only way I know to do that is to look at the drivers behind digital transformation from both the customer perspective as well as the company perspective. I'm going to look at what I call the digital transformation dilemma. We have an issue in the industry. If we don't solve it, we're not going to grow our industry. And I'm going to end with your Thursday morning to-do list that would result from this presentation. So let's kick off with the story. It starts in 2012. This is a multinational oil and gas corporation that at that time faced a dilemma that many companies faced then and even today, because they're the manufacturer in an industry where they distribute through in this case, distributor channel, and 85% of their goods were sold through the distribution channel. And they depended upon the distributors to know, sell, service, and grow the relationship with the customer. But in 2012, there was this movement called social media that was beginning to pervade all of business. And the challenge to this company, we'll call it Company X, was how do I stay connected with my end customer while distributing 85% of my product through the dealership or distributors? And the thinking was if there was a way we could connect to the end customer, that would be to the advantage of us, the manufacturer, in creating that dialogue so we could stay close to the market, stay close to the customer and their needs. So we formed a task force. It was called, I think, the Digital Advisory Task Force. And the goal was to leverage or think about, could we leverage digital technology to support our business goals and increase customer loyalty and advocacy so as to drive both product sales as well as brand strength and recognition of this global brand. Fortunately, we had a great sponsor for this initiative. It was a Scotsman who was a big Arsenal football fan. Arsenal is in the Premier League in England. And he had a few extra dollars to try what we call test and learn pilots. And he said, Bart, can we pull together something that makes sense? He loved Arsenal because they had a very active social media club, and he felt very connected to that club, and he felt a part of the overall Arsenal spirit. And he said, can we repeat that at this particular company? So we decided as a group to put together what was a strategy that included a private social media community. Now, you could ask the question, private versus public, just a quick observation. Public social media communities, that's Facebook, that's Twitter. It's most often open to all. Your competition can join. You don't own the data. You don't write the rules to the community. but you have large visibility, large numbers, great for branding, etc. Private social media community, you invite your customers to the community. They have to sign in. You know who they are. You can share stories amongst one another. You can bring in subject matter experts or industry luminaries to join the community. But it's private. You own the data. You're allowed to monitor what goes on in the community because you've asked the customers permission to do so, and you can use insight that you gather during their social dialogue to benefit both the company as well as the customer. So they chose, and for other reasons, the private community, because in that time Facebook was not allowed in China, which was one of their important countries for oil and gas, and anyhow, there were several reasons. And the goal behind this private community was threefold. Can we leverage this company's technology and their leadership and expertise? They were leaders in the oil and gas industry, still are, and we wanted to replicate that leadership in a digital world. That was the thinking, and the customers who were used to leadership and research and development and product would feel comfortable navigating over to a company that moved into the digital realm in a leadership role. They were first in on the leadership role. Number two, we wanted to build these relationships and engage directly with the customers. That was very important, to have that direct link, not just through the distributors, but directly to the customers, as well as other people that belong to the distribution channel, distributors, influencers, etc. And the ultimate goal was, could we drive loyalty and advocacy, and ultimately, could we drive sales through this type of a community? And by no means was this assured when we started out. I remember the discussions very well, but we said, let's give it a go. But this is a tough company, and it's a company that's very metrics-based. And they said, if we are going to try this test and learn pilot, we need to see the other side results that are meaningful to the corporation. And so we set some very hard metrics, and they were very serious about them, and you'll see we've monitored them over the last 6 years, and they've just become a part of the community. So one of them is brand awareness. And we measured that by the number of people that came to the community that signed up, that joined the community, and how many times they visited the community, and how many page views they looked at when they were inside the community. That was how we measured brand awareness. We looked at user participation as a second metric, and that was the number of people that actually engaged during forums, quizzes, discussions, videos, all kinds of things that happen inside the community to show this user participation. We looked at how often they visited the community. Did they repeat their visit? And we also looked at the Net Promoter Score. Were they happy at the end of the day as a part of the community? And last but not least, given the nature of this company, which is very bottom line driven, we had to have some type of business impact metric in there, and we chose two. One was, can we convert prospects who have now belonged to the community into customers, and then can we sell more product to customers and distributors inside the community? So we had some very big goals that we had to set, but with the executive support, dollars and metrics in place, we were finally ready to build our private B2B community. And off to the races we were. It has been built over the last 6 years in phases. The first phase I call the lounge or the bar. And lubrication engineers from around the world join the community, hang out in the community. They exchange stories, peer-to-peer exchange. They share videos. They talk about problems and get those resolved. They ask the expert questions. There's all kinds of things that happen. And it happens at this time in 3 languages, English and Spanish and Russian. And it's simultaneously real-time translated. So I could be sitting in Russia as a lubrication engineer. I'll put in a comment about whatever to do with lubricants, and it'll be received by somebody in Spain in Spanish. They'll respond in Spanish, and I'll receive it in America, and I'll receive it in English, and I'll respond in English, and the Russian will receive my comment in Russian. So it's a completely global, real-time environment. That was the first phase. And as you can imagine, it started slowly and it built up, and today there are literally thousands and thousands of participants, but these were the early years of our test and learn pilot. When we began to do a little bit better, and we showed management that this was not only feasible, but in fact we started to measure those metrics, particularly the business impact, they started to get fairly excited about this and started to give us more money. And that allowed us to then expand our community from beyond the lounge and the bar to what we call group conference rooms. So here we could have employees of Company X that could get together, let's just say salespeople, and discuss a tough sales problem. And they could be anywhere in the world. These customers typically are global. So we could get a team together in the room, in a private setting, in a digital world, and we could communicate and try to figure out a problem. Or we could get the distributors together and talk about a topic that might be of importance to the distributors, and they could share stories with one another inside the digital conference room. And then about a year and a half ago, we moved to the third phase, and that was what we called private digital rooms, or digital private rooms. And here we have today more than 1,000 of them, and those rooms are assigned to a particular customer. That customer and their sales executive. And so what happens is we do all of the annual planning inside the rooms. We have discussions with the customer inside the room. We bring in the CEO of this company if it's necessary, or subject matter experts, or industry influencers, but it's a private room, just like you have the rooms upstairs if you're staying in this hotel. And at the end of the meeting, you literally close the door, you take out the key, and then what happens is the customer and their sales engineer and the other salespeople will go downstairs to the bar and you'll have a drink with everybody else. So in effect, what we've built is a digital hotel. And I always was impressed with the Hyatt Regency, the Hyatt in Embarcadero in San Francisco, and that's my concept for this community. We've got the upstairs rooms, there's over 1,000 of them, private digital rooms. We use them when we need to. We write the annual plans, all the forms are in the room. We talk, shop. But then when we're through, we get down to the bar and we chat with our buddies. We take quizzes. We share stories. And we just enjoy life. And that's the community today. And it's been a rather vibrant community. But let's look at how are we doing against some of those metrics that I talked about earlier on. So I'm sharing with you now some right up to date. They were done in April, in fact, just this very month. We because of the importance that the company places on user participation, we survey the entire community twice a year. So this is the most recent statistic came out this month. So let's look at some of the usage participation, user participation, so frequency of visiting the club. As you can see, both distributors and customers, more than 85% of the members, and there's literally thousands and thousands, visit. 85% of them visit on a monthly basis, greater than 85. And more than 55% of the distributors and 60% of the customers visit weekly. So we know that there's something in there that they like, something they want to come to and just discover and explore together. On the brand awareness side, we ask a couple of different questions on the survey. Do you get what you need from the community? And on both distributor and customer, more than 95% said, yep, it's spot on, I like what I see. Have you invited customers to join the club? Another way to figure out whether there's this loyalty to the brand and awareness. We asked the distributors to invite their friends, and more than 50% of the members have actually brought customers into the club, which is a nice indication of how it's going. And do you recommend the products to other people from the customer side to your fellow colleagues? And more than 60% of them do that as well. When it comes to business impact, we ask a couple of questions. Have you, Mr. and Mrs. Distributor, sold more product as a result of belonging to the community? And the last survey showed an astounding 70% of them responded yes. We ask a similar question to the customer, have you bought more product? And again, we have greater than 50% of all customers belonging to the community have increased their purchase as a result of belonging to the community. I have to tell you, we go further. It's not the purpose of this discussion, but the community now is self-funding. So they've bought so much more or sold so much more that it pays for the community. So we have a self-funding vehicle. And the last thing we ask, which is very important, is the Net Promoter Score. And I'm sure you're all familiar with it. And we received an absolutely astounding figure. It's greater than 75%. You know, the best Net Promoter Score in history is 80, and that was done by USAA. We're right close to USAA, and we're just thrilled to death because we know there's something about this community that has lit kind of a vibrant feeling within the customer and distributor base. We have accomplished our desire to not only work with distributors, but get to the end customer. And so we're really beginning to accomplish many of our goals. But the story doesn't end here. No initiative moves forward unless you have additional and new ideas. So let me give you a couple of things that we're looking for in the future. So the first thing we're doing, and we're doing quite a bit already, is integrating the community with other digital properties. There's direct feed from it to the CRM system. So for example, as we monitor what's being said in the community and we pick up something of importance, that gets digitally sent down into the customer profile, housed within the CRM. It creates a lead for the salespeople, and then they go visit the customer. I told you that we have permission to use what a customer says in the community to help us do research and development and to provide better customer experience. So the salesman might say, I saw you on the community last night, you raised this topic, I thought it might be of interest, we could follow it up. And so it's a very nice way to link the community with CRM. We've linked the community with the website. So we have a direct, and soon it'll be a seamless integration between the community and the website. And how does that work? Somebody comes onto the website. Not a very exciting place to be on a website, but they get a little prompt that says, would you like to talk with your colleagues? Would you like to learn more about a particular product or service? And they say yes, and they immediately are part of the community after they've signed in. Or I can be on the community, and I'm interested in a particular product, and I want to distribute, and it'll say, would you like to know your nearest distributor? I'll click on that, and it'll take me back to the website where I have my distributor listing. We're also beginning to integrate the community with other Facebook and LinkedIn efforts from this company. We're looking at it as the sole source of information for a lubrication engineer, the salt lick of the industry, and it's really becoming very exciting for all of us that have been a part of the story for a long time. Second thing we're doing, and I think it's important, we are optimizing lead nurturing via the community. So let's think about this. Typically, companies will ask customers to come to the website to learn about products or services. They may ask them to fill out a digital form with their name, and that might eventually go to a marketing department or a sales department for follow-up. And while there's a benefit to that, what we feel and what we've found is there is no better place in the entire corporation than this community to drive lead nurturing, and here's why. If you take a prospect and bring them into the community, and you prompt them, as Amazon might do as you're buying something and you notice, they prompt you to buy other things, and you prompt them to go to various places in the community that we know are the customer journeys of our best distributors, are the customer journeys of our best customers. And you prompt them for what is called digital triggering. So you say, you might say, welcome back to the community. People in their first 3 months like to typically visit these 3 areas. And they might visit them. And what are we doing? We're looking at the customer journey, again, of our best distributors and customers, and we're basically encouraging prospects to follow that journey. And it's working. It's working brilliantly because we can actually monitor not only what are they doing in the community through our digital triggers, but every time they touch part of the community, we can also then begin to see how is that impacting them and have they converted from prospect to customer. It's now become the #1 place for lead nurturing in the company. And I have to tell you, from an initial skeptical executive team to where we are today, it's been a tremendous ride. And the last one we're talking about is expanding content. Communities have to be vibrant. They have to have all kinds of interesting information, so we're looking at more training modules. We do videos from trade shows, so if customers can't attend the trade show, they can see the trade show through the community. We run live feeds and all kinds of things. So this is kind of where we are today. So I sit back sometimes and I ask, well, how did this happen and why did they get it right, or what did they do to get it right? So let me share with you my short list, and you can think about whether it makes sense for you. First of all, they had a digital transformation game plan. The community was a piece of a bigger digital, well, it was actually a game plan. And it was at the core of it. There are many other pieces that are now filling in over the years, but it was at the core of this digital transformation game plan. We had strong executive buy-in. This gentleman, Ian, was willing to take a risk. And in this corporation that's extremely conservative, the oil and gas industry is extremely conservative, that was a big jump to let customers talk to each other. What if they say something bad about this global oil and gas company? We used an agile implementation approach. So the community, as you see, is built over multiple years, 6 years now, in bite-sized chunks. You know, you don't eat an elephant all at once, you eat it in bite-sized chunks, and that's just what we've done. And we're very careful that we test and learn along the way. We've made many mistakes, but we've continues to move forward. Strong content and effective monitoring. Quite frankly, we didn't know what customers really wanted. We thought we did, but it ends up we didn't. And the way you work with a customer experience and the whole idea of leveraging digital technology to improve the customer experience is you let the customer talk to you, give feedback, and you adjust accordingly. And the community has really made tremendous transformation in terms of listening to the customer and delivering the content that they tell us they want to see through the surveys and discussion forums, et cetera. We also have effective monitoring. It's monitored 24/7 to make sure there's no antitrust violations, and it also allows us to capture those ideas that a customer might have about a sales opportunity. We can then pass it down to our sales rep, again, for follow-up. But I think the one that is most important is what I'd like to refer to as the customer-centric focus. The fact that we do go out and survey twice a year. The fact that we have very effectively looked at best distributor, best customer, digital customer journeys. The fact that we have deep insight coming from the customers and the distributors as to what is important to them so that we can adjust the community accordingly. So what can we learn from this company X? We could say we've learned how one company has successfully leveraged digital technology to drive customer experience excellence. And that would be a fair statement. This is a success story in the industry. But I'd like to go a little bit further. And I'd like to suggest that we have learned how a company created a new business model, changed the culture of a rather conservative company by leveraging digital technologies to improve the customer experience and, more importantly, to create new ways for their customers to engage with their business however their customers like and whenever they want. And for me, that's the definition, ladies and gentlemen, of a good digital transformation. But as I alluded to in my opening discussions, the question is, can digital transformation sustain itself? Is there sufficient drivers behind digital transformation that'll carry us forward in the industry? And I actually believe there are, but let me share them with you and you make your own decision. On the customer side, 24/7 availability. This is something that we know that customers love. They have access not just to this community, but to the contact center, to the online portal, to whatever your particular situation might be. The speed of being able to engage with digital applications and then completing tasks that were mundane in the past. Think of the banking industry, our ability to open an account and request a loan and secure a loan, all done online, 24/7. Customers love this. This is the digital customer. The whole self-service aspect, the ability for customer to come online and have access to online resources, subject matter experts. They love the peer-to-peer exchange. What one person says to another person, they begin to share stories. The concept, the ability to do customized or personalized digital content is another driver from the customer side. And companies, as you know, are able to create customized websites. So, they know Bart is a male that has certain likes and the website will show what I like. So this is another thing. But the one that I think is the biggest driver in the industry right now is this one. The digital customer's desire to receive personalized, intuitive, convenient, and joyful digital experiences. You're all digital customers. Is anybody in this room that would not want to sign up for this? And the answer is, of course not. And that's really at the heart of what's driving digital transformation from the customer side. Let's go across to the company side. And here we have a slightly different situation because here we're going to have to look at return on investment and whether it really makes a difference in sales, etc. So putting my CEO hat on for a minute, I get impressed with the recent Bain & Company study that talks about the revenue of digital leaders being twice that of our digital laggards. I also can't help but look at the digital leaders, looking at how Uber and Netflix and Amazon and Apple and Spotify and Airbnb and Disney and all kinds of companies have literally changed the way we do business, have transformed and pushed customer experience to an entirely new level. Now, you may not see those as your competitors, but for sure they're setting the bar of expectation for how your customer wants to do business with you. We also know, and it's really becoming increasingly apparent, that the key differentiator of a company is not your product or your price. It's the whole customer experience. And in fact, that has now taken over the #1 spot in most surveys and studies as the way to differentiate yourself from the competition and as the key brand differentiator. I go back to what I said earlier, that customers who receive personal and convenient and intuitive and enjoyable experiences actually end up spending more money, and they actually are more loyal to a company. And all these things are very important to the executive team who are looking and contemplating some significant investments in the space of digital transformation. The value to the companies has been validated recently in some very important studies. One of them was an important Harvard Business Review study. 40% of all companies named customer experience as their top priority for digital transformation, and 72% said they expect the shift to digital will create closer customer relationships. So we're starting to put together the inevitable ability to use digital technology to improve customer experience and to leverage digital transformation to drive customer excellence. The McKinsey study just came out. It concluded, and I think it's a great line, digital services and operations are the prime mover in reshaping customer experience in almost every industry. But at the end of the day, this is the one that I remember well. Businesses live or die based on their ability to engage effectively with their customers. And today's customers are demanding digital interaction and engagement, and they're demanding outstanding customer experience because of all the wonderful experience they've had with the digital leaders. So I sit back and say, digital transformation looks like it has a future. Looks like those drivers are sufficient to propel us to greater heights. But we have a problem in the industry. We have a problem in the industry right now, and we call it the digital transformation dilemma. I'm sure there's nothing new about this, but if we as an industry don't address and resolve this dilemma, we're not going to move forward in digital transformation. We know, for example, that 89% of executives are feeling that digitization will disrupt their business this very year. And we know that IDC has forecasted digital transformation to exceed $2 trillion this year. So you think, let's break out the champagne. But then we look at the other side of the dilemma. Less than 1/3 of all executives believe that their digital strategy is correct. Only 21% believe they have the right people setting the digital strategy. And a whopping 85% of digital transformation efforts are failing to meet expected results. So wait a minute. We have this wonderful opportunity, but we have a dilemma in the industry. And how do you resolve that dilemma? So let's go back to where we started, and that is Company X. And let's look at what is it that they did effectively to drive their particular digital transformation success. You remember they had a digital transformation game plan. They had very strong executive buy-in. They had agile implementation. They were doing it in bite-sized chunks over a period of time with a big game plan in place. They had a very customer-centric focus. They listened carefully. They monitored the digital customer journeys. They went out and surveyed the customer to gain insight. They did all kinds of things to help drive that customer experience. I'd like to add one final way of resolving the digital transformation platform, and that is making sure that the building blocks for digital transformation are in place. Which building blocks? So this is my version of the building blocks. There are many different people who have their own version of the building blocks, but I'd like to share mine with you. There are 5 of them. The first one goes back to the observation that businesses live and die by their ability to engage with customers. So customer engagement is one of the building blocks of effective digital transformation. And that is the digital customer journeys. That is the surveying of the customer digitally or non-digitally on a regular and consistent basis. That is understanding where a customer likes to do business, in which channels, and making sure on an omni-channel perspective that we are where we need to be with the right information contextually so that we are connecting and engaging with our customer. That's one of the building blocks. Second building block, data and analytics. And I'd like to call that the foundation for a successful data transformation. I can take my data and analytics and I can overlay it on my CRM customer profile, and I get a deep insight into segments and clusters and groups that we should be promoting our services or products. I can take my data analytics filter and put it onside my website to determine what is being looked at, what is not being looked at, what should be my next best offer, etc. I can take my data analytics engine and use it in the social media site to figure out what are the new forums that I should put up, or how do we change the structure of the questions or the experts that are being invited. And the third building block, in my opinion, is that of the social communities. And really what that is the listening post of digital transformation. It's simply amazing what we can learn if we listen to our customers. And there's no better way to do that than to actively participate in a public and/or, I prefer, a private community where we are having an actual dialogue directly with the customer, listening and learning along the way. CRM is another one of the 5 building blocks, and that's the gem inside digital transformation. Why is it the gem? Because it houses the customer profile, the holistic customer profile. And while, unfortunately, companies still have not quite conquered the value and the importance of the customer profile, that is where we house the data of a customer. That is their online behavior and their offline behavior pulled together through tools like identity resolution. That is the way that we do our segmentation and targeting as we look across our customer profiles. That is the place in the profile where we learn of the new opportunities to better serve or sell and market to a customer. And that CRM is the gem that houses the customer profile. And then we move to the emerging technology as the 5th and final building block of an effective digital transformation. That's to provide new and exciting ways to engage customers and to drive customer experience excellence. There are many great emerging technologies. I happen to have my eye on a few that are I think are very important. The whole area of AI, and particularly its ability on the sales side to look at predictive lead scoring, to do sales forecasting. There's a whole bunch of ways that AI is finding its way into sales, marketing, and customer service. I have my eye on identity resolution. Just out of a show of hands, please. I would like to know how many of you are either familiar with the concept of identity resolution or have it employed in your companies. Could you just raise your hands? This is great. I'm glad to see this. We have 10 or so hands. So this is the ability to look at not Bart as an offline individual that makes purchases and I have my transactional history, but to look at Bart as his offline behavior and Bart's online behavior, and without breaking data privacy rules, as I move around the web, I'm leaving cookies and digital IDs, and when I authenticate on the web by buying something or giving my email or whatever, I can then, like a domino, go backwards and look at what is Bart's digital behavior. I can link that to my offline behavior, and I have a much better picture as who is Bart. Now, I can't directly deal with Bart online from that, but I can cluster Bart in groups of 25 and market effectively to Bart. So that's another technology, identity resolution, that I have my eye on. I have my eye on augmented reality. I really love augmented reality. I'm very big in Rotary, and in Rotary we do a lot of polio eradication efforts around the world, and we use augmented reality as a vehicle to bring fellow Rotarians, 1.2 million of us around the world, through a set of goggles and understand what it means to put those 2 drops in the mouths of the children. And the same thing carries forward to businesses. The ability to take your customer to the vineyards so they can see how you make your wine, or to bring them into the factory floor to show them how you make your particular molded product. And so I'm very keen on this augmented reality as a technology. I've got a couple more that I think are important. Personalized interactive video. I think that this is very exciting. And contact centers are really exploiting this, and I encourage it, where a customer can come in and look at a particular issue based on the customer profile and knowledge of that customer. We can personalize the video and interactive so they can get what they want and move along down the path of the interactive video. So there's many, many exciting technologies that form a part of it as well. Let me close. We started today's discussion with a journey of Customer X moving its digital transformation forward to drive customer experience excellence. I'd like to return to the customer journey, but this time it's your customer journey. And I'd like to ask the question, or encourage you at least, to look at what you might do on Thursday that's different from when you came to this conference. And here's my short recommendation to-do list. Number one, I would encourage you to research alternate digital transformation methodologies. There are many of them. Several of the leaders in this conference have written some of them. So I encourage you to really do your research. And the question I want you to focus on is, do they include the 5 core building blocks? Number two, I'd like you to examine your data capturing and customer insight effort. Can you truly leverage data and customer insight to personalize offers? Number three, I'd like you to review your customer profiles. Are they truly holistic? And can you take that profile and use it and leverage it to deliver customer experience excellence? I want to drive this point home. Customer profiles. They contain sales information, marketing information, customer service information. They have back office information, whether it's from the ERP, from your point of sale, from your loyalty program. They contain third-party data from sources that are specific to your industry. All that gets pulled together with the help of identity resolution technology for online-offline integration into the profile. The profile is what you then leverage to drive your digital transformation efforts and drive that customer experience excellence. If you don't have a rock-solid, holistic customer profile, you can't get to where company X wanted to go and went, and you can't get through to a successful digital transformation. I'd like you to look at your omni-channel strategy. How comfortable are you in understanding where your customers are conducting business? And are you present in those channels? We all know in the industry that more than 80% of a customer's buying decision is made well before they ever contact the company. That 80% happens in a series of research and discoveries that the customer does. Out of sight, out of mind. You have to be there with contextually relevant information at each step of their omni-channel journey. And last but not least, I'd like to challenge you to create a plan to stay on top of emerging technologies. There's no magic bullet here. It's very hard. There's many, many great technologies on the floor. I'd encourage you to visit the floor. Some are going to be here forever. Some of them are going to die on the vine. And it's just a judgment call, but you should have a plan to stay on top of the technology, because indeed, leveraging digital technology to improve customer experiences and using digital transformation to drive customer experience excellence is here today, and it's our job as an industry to make that happen in the future. So if you'd like to continue this conversation, I'm in the booth at 4:05, or alternatively, contact me. Bob, I think I'm right on time. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share this with you.